I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about these controlling the controllables. Because variables will be what they are, and you'll just have to live with that. A lot of people in their sort of everyday life will know and definitely have an affinity with what they can control versus what they can't control. And ultimately, if you can control as much as possible, then I suspect you're more likely to have success than not. So how do you do this better? And I suppose if we use the analogy of a race, that's probably the best way of going about it. So with regards to your preparation for a race, during the race, after the race, how do you best control the controllables?
I think it is really as simple as recognizing that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and that working on your strengths to make them stronger can sometimes be more productive, and sometimes it's working on the weaknesses to have them closer behind your strengths. And I think it's about probably looking at the big picture. So if you look at the big picture, you can work it out better. And just, I think as well, it helps in competing, or it certainly helped me to have a coach. And to have somebody who at the end of the day is making that final decision, because oftentimes the athlete will keep trying to push through, and the coach or somebody alongside saying, you know what, you're actually better off resting now. You're better off coming and doing this on a different day when you'll get more out of it, and having that little bit of a step back, because a good athlete who's always pushing themselves will always struggle to bin that session and say, okay, it's just not happening, to give up. And so to have somebody say, no, it's more productive and it will be more in our interests to do it when you are 100% and able to achieve more and get more from the session. I think that is the same. And I guess that then also transfers over to life, in terms of there are some days when you're on it and you feel like you can control things and really get a lot of those areas of your life that you're trying to make that little bit better, and that those parts of yourself that you're trying to improve. There are some days where that is great and you can work on that and you feel like you're really getting somewhere, and there are other days where it literally just feels like everything's going wrong, the whole thing's against you, and you'd actually be far better off just laying on the sofa with a book or watching a bit of Netflix and then just going to bed and starting again the next day. So I think, that's when I say be kind to yourself.
It's so true. Some days it's a little bit like just wading through treacle, and you sort of persist and you keep trying to sort of get to where you want to go to, but it's just there's nothing for it. I mean, is goal setting a big part of how an athlete plans their future,
yes,
their pathway?
Definitely. And that was something that my coach told me when I was only 11, like in your training diary, 1st of January every year, it became a little bit of a tradition. I would write down my goals, and they weren't all athletics goals. Some of them were school goals. Some of them were just personal goals. But predominantly they were the athletic ones. And they're the ones that it's having them somewhere where you see them pretty much every day and you remember why you're doing things. So you remember why you're pushing yourself out the door when sometimes you don't really want to. Sometimes you do and you're just raring to go and get after it. But there are some days when you don't. And that's when I think having that motivation there and having that team around you, that's what I say to people, like when they're picking a goal, pick it with a bunch of friends. Because rarely will you all have a non-motivated day on the same day. So there's always going to be someone who's going, yeah, we've got this. Come on, I'm helping you get through it. And then the next day it might be you helping them get through it. But being there and having that motivation is what pushes you on and gives it a purpose to getting out there and to pushing through things.
I guess, we laugh about multitasking, but is prioritizing a thing? Because if you can be good with your priorities and kind of let go the bits that really don't matter, the sort of, the gains that aren't really going to change the dial, is that a thing too, to really be good at prioritizing?
Definitely. I think that's hard to do, isn't it? Especially, I think, because I think as athletes and a lot of people are just kind of perfectionists by nature. So accepting, okay, I can't do that. That's beyond me today, is quite hard to do. So I think I always found it easier personally to prioritize in order of importance and what's achievable and to do it that way. And then I feel like you can get through it more. So I know I can do that today. I've got that. And that is really urgent. I don't have a choice on that. That has to get done today. And so kind of tick those off. And in amongst that, there's no harm in having the ones that you actually want to do. Things, oh, I'm really excited to do that. That's something that I'm really looking forward to get done. So that's not a bad priority or an urgent priority. That's just it's good for me priority. And I think those are important to have therein as well. So have a little bit of something that makes you feel good and excites you to do it. And then you feel a little bit better to attack the things that maybe you're not quite so motivated to get done, but they just need to be done.
In a race-like environment, you can control a certain degree of the controllables, but then you'll get thrown a curveball, right? An opponent or somebody else or a competitor may do something which you then have to react to. So how flexible do you have to be in terms of adapting?
I think you have to be very, very flexible. And I guess, again, that's another thing that I loved about the marathon. I think probably I like to be very organized as a person, but I'm also very spontaneous. I like to just go with it. And maybe that's why I like being under pressure and reacting and having to do that. So I think that is something you absolutely have to go with in the marathon. Anything can happen. Like something can come from the side of the road. Someone can do something completely crazy that you have to make that split decision. Can they sustain this? Is this something that are they just ruining their own race? And if I go with them, am I going to mess up mine? Or is this a serious attempt that I have to respect? I have to counter and I have to do in some way, stay in contact without jeopardizing the way that I'm going to be able to finish the race. So you have to make that split decision in the time that surge has gone in. And I think sometimes that does happen in life as well, doesn't it? You have to react and go with it immediately.
So stick to the plan, but be able to adapt. Perfect.
Yeah, be able to think on your feet and just, and also listen to your instincts. I think that's a huge, big one for me. I really feel that...
Now we're getting to see what's in your fridge.
You know what they say about working with animals and working with children? It's right, Raph, you're on the TV there.
He's like, whatever, Mum. Slam. Oh no, he's back. He's back.
He's back. Yeah, quick.
This was what lockdown taught us when we did. This is what lockdown taught us when we did interviews online. You got to see what was really going on behind the scenes, as opposed to like just the gloss over studio look.
And I was like, no, he's meant to be at the canteen. He's not even meant to be here. Sorry. Right.
I'll let you go.
I do seriously think listening to your instincts is a really important one. Okay. All right. Sorry.
You've got much more to deal with back there. Okay. You've got to adapt and be flexible to a boy who's hungry.
Thank you. Oh, and apologies once again.
Thank you. All right. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.